Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. For those who haven't been here before, my name's Anna, and it's been quite a while since I've uploaded a video. For those who have watched me for a few years now, you know that I had a cancer diagnosis, and I thought today I'll just tell you a little bit about my cancer journey because it was in June of last year that I was diagnosed, and quite a lot has happened since then. So I really just wanted to do a little update and just talk about my cancer journey, some of the signs and symptoms that I had. It was recently World Cancer Day, and I think there's like over 200 million people are living with cancer, and you know, early diagnosis is the key really, and it's so important to get your symptoms and get yourself checked out. So I just thought if this video could maybe help one person, then it would definitely be worth making. So if you're new here, I usually post like theme park, days out vlogs, just kind of family and lifestyle really. So this is a little bit different. So where to start really? My name's Anna, I'm 45 years old, I'm a mum and a nurse, I'm quite a senior nurse, so I've got a bit of a medical background which really helped in my case as well, although it was also a hindrance because sometimes having too much knowledge is not a good thing. So I currently have stage 3 colorectal cancer, or can be called bowel cancer. So my cancer was discovered in my sigmoid colon. Try and put a picture in to show you where it was. So prior to that, I didn't really have many symptoms, which is quite worrying considering that I'm stage 3. Probably back in about January, February of last year, I started getting symptoms, and they were really mild. It was just feeling, so not actually being, just feeling a little bit constipated. So it was easily written off as like, well, we just had Christmas, you know, my diet's not been the best, not that it ever really is, so I could easily attribute to those things. So carried on with that, and I did notice as well that I was getting a bit of pain in my left side, which would come and go. It did progressively get worse. I was really tired all the time, but again, you know, being a mum and working full time, it was easy to explain away the symptoms. It was so easy. I hadn't lost any weight. If anything, I'd put weight on. So I went a few months just having this niggly pain, bowels not being quite right, and just really exhausted. So that was kind of my symptoms, which I easily could have treated at home. I could have got some Laxida or a laxative, and that would have, you know, helped the constipation. But I have got a strong history of bowel cancer, so of losing a father and a sister at relatively, well, certainly my sister, you know, a young age. So I thought, yeah, I better go and do the sensible thing and go to the GP. So I went to the GP, and she wasn't overly concerned either. As with most things, like if a referral is going to be made, it is literally like the amount of boxes you tick. And I knew from that session with the GP, I had ticked every box. I had abdominal pain, there was a family history. So what she did, she didn't want to make the referral, the 2-week wait referral for suspected cancer. So she gave me a fit test, which is like a little I don't know how to describe it, a strip, and you take a stool sample, so your poo sample, and send off, and it checks for like traces of blood. I was never given the result. I found out by looking them up myself that my result was over 400, which is quite high. After I'd seen the GP, she must have had a change of heart, and I had a message come through saying actually they have put me on the 2-week wait referral for suspected cancer. And with any sort of bowel cancer, I did have an examination when I was there as well, nothing untoward. You know, I could see she wasn't really overly concerned, and I think that was really, well, all the way through, because of my age, although 45 isn't exactly young, and I know, you know, younger people being diagnosed all the time. You know, it's not nice. I can see why people do put off going to the doctors, but trust me, being a nurse, like, we love to talk about poo. You know, it's just no embarrassment there. Doctors do the examinations. They hear this every single day, so please try not to be embarrassed, because you know, it could save your life as well. Or go be embarrassed and then go home and have a large glass of wine and just get over it, because really to medical professionals, we're just like tubes really, and things go wrong in those tubes, and yeah, it's not nice, but it is really important to get checked out if you have any symptoms. And the typical symptoms of bowel cancer, I think blood in your poo, first and foremost, any sign of that, get yourself checked out. And things, constipation, change in bowel habits, really. So that can be constipation, diarrhea, any unexplained pain, weight loss, fatigue. So again, you know, I didn't fill all those boxes. I was the complete opposite. Everyone kept saying, well, you know, it's nothing sinister because you look really well, which was meaning I was putting on weight, which I've just continued to do throughout my cancer journey. I didn't even get to lose the weight. So anyway, yeah, so I went to doctors, then they called and said I'll be under a 2-week wait. And that 2-week wait entails for me, I think for most people, a colonoscopy, which is a camera in the bum. You can have that with sedation, with gas and air, really well looked after. And that camera will go round, like up through into your colon. It's uncomfortable, but then again, I had a big tumour there, so it was going to be uncomfortable when they tried to pass that point. But you know, sedation, I'd recommend. It was fine. So they put the camera through to have a good look at your inside, really. So my 2-week wait actually turned into, I'm just thinking, I went to the doctors in April, and I had the colonoscopy, I think beginning of June. And yeah, during that colonoscopy, I could see on the screen that there was something there that shouldn't be there. It was like a large stricture, really. It didn't look good. It was a trainee doing the procedure, and then the consultant got on, took over and took biopsies. So they took biopsies of the kind of tumour in my bowel. And the atmosphere in the room changed. I know everyone has different experiences, and some people, they see there and then, actually, we think this is cancer. For me, it was kind of played down massively. Like even afterwards in recovery, I said to the nurse, well, what did you biopsy? And they just said, oh, well, the inside of your colon. It wasn't really spoken about, but I was given a copy of the report with the pictures, and they said, you know, this on that form, report that suspected cancer keep on pathway. I then went on to have a CT, which is a scan. So you go into like a half a donut machine, in and out. So actually it wasn't CT, it was a colonography. So again, it's not the most pleasant. You have a tube which goes into your bum, fills your colon up with air, and you go in and out the scanner. I knew they were going to see something there because obviously the colonoscopy picked something up. So yeah, during then, he got a bit worried because they're like, right, we need to do your chest. So they scanned my chest as well, and the nurse and me was like, you think it's spread? Yeah, they wouldn't give me any results because they can't. So they're not trained to, they're just trained to do the scan. But I was a bit of a nightmare patient, and a bit concerned, well, really worried because they wanted to scan other parts of me. And in my head, I was like, oh gosh, this is bad. And it looks like it's spread. So yeah, so then it was a long waiting game, and that is absolutely the worst. If anyone's been through this, I'm sure you feel absolutely the same, because in my head I was thinking, right, well, that's it, I'm riddled with cancer, it's gone everywhere. Yeah, and until you have the results and that talk with your team, you don't know what's going on. So I think it's really natural to think the worst. I was hoping for the best all the way through. I mean, even when I went to the GP, I really thought, am I just making a fuss? I'm going to make a fuss, I'm going to go to this colonoscopy, and they're going to be like, oh, there's nothing there. And so when they actually gave me the results and said that I had cancer, I was both like completely surprised, but not at all surprised. And it's just the strangest thing. So my GP actually gave me the results. The receptionist had called me about an unrelated matter and said my hospital results were through. So I knew that was the biopsy results. And I just couldn't wait at that point. It was coming up to the weekend, so I called and actually spoke to my GP. He was reluctant to give the results, even though they were like right in front of him, and explained that all he could say was the results of those biopsies. He wouldn't be able to give a wider picture, which is why it's better to wait for the MDT. But I said, well, if it's not anything bad, you know, I'd rather know. And basically I just had to know. It's better for me to feel like, right, you know, this is it, this is what we're dealing with. And yeah, so unfortunately the GP gave me, well, not unfortunately because I asked for it, in hindsight it was unfortunate, the GP gave me the results while I was at work, and said, yeah, the biopsy showed cancer. So at that point, as I say, it was a Friday, we were going into the weekend, there was no one I could talk to from the hospital, not that I had contact details at that point. So I was absolutely devastated. I left work, yeah, and then just went through, I think that was probably one of the hardest weekends of writing myself off, yeah, with cancer. And then on the Monday, I had a call to go into the hospital to meet with the MDT team, and they had the colorectal surgeon. So at this point, there was a cancer nurse, surgeons, and they started to explain things, and I said, well, I'll stop you there because my GP said I've got cancer. And at that point they were like, well, your GP's wrong. So I was completely confused at this point, and they said, we need to do more tests to make sure. So they asked for repeat colonoscopies and repeat CT scans. So I had to go through the whole process again. And I never really understood this until I was talking to my oncologist right at the end of my journey. And she said, because it was such a major operation I had, and given my age, they wanted to be absolutely certain it was cancer before removing a large chunk of my bowel, which I get. But then, you know, to me, the biopsies showed cancer. There was a really large stricture in there. So anyhow, it all happened quite quickly. Within the next 2 weeks, I went and had a complete CT scan. They call it a CT tap. Yeah, so scanned a lot more places, had another colonoscopy. The doctor during the colonoscopy was actually really good, although I was given wrong information. She said it's not gone to your lymph nodes. So I thought, well, that's positive. But was quite concerned at how big it was, because there is a risk that you can go into obstruction, which means that your bowel can basically block, which fortunately didn't happen to me. They did explain afterwards that with this sort of cancer, unfortunately, some people, well, with the majority of people, that's their first sign, is that actually they can't open their bowels, they can't have a poo, and then they present in the hospital and they find a really big tumour, and then it's, you know, kind of too late to cure. Although can be treated, it would be too late to cure. But fortunately, yeah, that didn't happen. And then it was just a waiting game, really. I think all these extra tests and that was going into June and July. Went back for the MDT. They said, yeah, definitely cancer, definitely. No mucking about, it's cancer. They said, again, it was wrong, that it seemed very, like, it wasn't advanced. It wouldn't be like a late stage or anything like that. So I was really happy with that. And then booked in for surgery in the August. So I carried on working up till, I think, the very beginning of August. My surgery was on August the 8th, so I carried on working. And then the fatigue and the pain in my left-hand side, and obviously the emotional kind of stress from it all, I then stopped working and had, you know, a week just with my family, really, with my daughter Lila, taking her out. We went to the beach every day, and, you know, just kind of chilled out there, while all this was going on, because I wasn't well enough to work, and trying to also optimize myself for surgery. So the surgery itself, to get geared up for that, I had a meeting with the anaesthetist. I had to do an exercise test because it's such a major surgery. They needed to see that my heart and lungs could withstand it, because I am overweight, although age was on my side. So that entailed, oh, forgive me, she wasn't a physiotherapist, I don't know her role, but she was fantastic. And I had to literally get on an exercise bike in my bra with, like, be hooked up to a monitor, and a mask, so they could just monitor, because the recovery from surgery, I think it's like the equivalent of like walking a marathon. Like, it's the equivalent of like walking 22 miles a day. I don't know, that's probably completely wrong, but it is really hard going on the body, the recovery from surgery. So yeah, so I had to pedal for 10 minutes in my bra on an exercise bike, a high resistance, which I managed to do and passed all that absolutely fine. So they were happy to go ahead with the operation. So the operation they were planning to do, it was done robotically. So really fortunately, the hospital local to me and actually who I work for, they've got the robotic, do you call them machines? But yeah, I was able to have the surgery robotically, which has got a lot of benefits. And that was, as I say, planned. It usually, I think, can take around 5 hours. Mine actually took 8 hours, so it was a long surgery. There was a chance that I'd be given a stoma during the surgery, which is where they loop the bowel out and like bring it through the wall there, and you have a bag. But I didn't have that. My surgeon managed to join like the ends of my bowel. So basically what they've done is a higher anterior resection. So they take out a large chunk of your bowel and then they joined up the ends, and he told me he double stitched it as well. So I had to be really careful afterwards and like only fluids for a few days. So yeah, I was really, really scared for the surgery, really scared. And I spoke to Macmillan a lot, because it's not nice to have major surgery, and I was really worried that I might not wake up. And I you know, now, things that I know now are really normal. I don't think anyone gets excited for surgery. The team were just really good though, and the day that, you know, I went in and my family had to drop me off really early, and then you're on your own, but they treat me like a rock star, really. They were just so lovely. And the last thing I remember is them sort of, you know, just being so nice, so caring, and giving me the meds, you know, the general anaesthetic, and saying, you know, think of something lovely. So, of course, I thought of like walking through Magic Kingdom. And then that was it. The next thing I know, I was waking up in recovery a lot of hours later, and then taken up to a ward where some people go into intensive care. I was fortunate I didn't need to. I just went to a high dependency bay, which meant there's a nurse there at all times, and you have like hourly obs. Pain was well controlled, really well controlled. I was surprised when I woke up, even though I have been a nurse and nursey sort of patients. I don't know why I was taken by surprise, but I had like a Ryle's drain, so a tube going through my nose, just draining like the contents from my stomach. I had a drain coming from like one of my wounds, and I was hooked up IV fluids. I was having antibiotics and also the morphine pump. So we call it a PCA, and that controls, the patient is able, then you can control your pain really. So you literally push a button, morphine is dispensed, and I think you can click it, so like 5 times every half an hour, something like, I don't know, but my pain was well controlled. And then the next few days, really, the surgeon came to see me every day. I had friends that were working in the hospital, so that was lovely, so they came to see me. And what I'd recommend to anyone going through that, just get out of bed. So we say that to, you know, no matter what you're in hospital for. Obviously if you've got like low blood pressure, stuff like that, you're advised not to, but the sooner you get up and moving with anything, it's the better. So I was quite chuffed when my surgeon and my friend who works for the stoma team came around just to like visit, and I was up out of bed, you know, having a wash by the bed space. Following day I was out, you know, walking back and forth to the toilet, and washing in there. And then just before I left, I was like doing, not laps of the hospital, but I was kind of bored. So yeah, I was walking down to the restaurant, which was fabulous. And I think day 5 I was home. Again, couldn't bring the morphine pump home, but my pain was well controlled. I think I had paracetamol and cocodamol. And then yeah, just came home, and then the surgeon said to me, I was in the hospital, he said he didn't think it spread any further. So again, really positive news. And then I was just at home recovering from surgery, and then I knew I'd be having a follow-up, which came in September. So I had my surgery in August, and I went down, and again expecting really good news, because that's kind of what I've been told, that it hadn't spread. It was, you know, really early stages. wasn't in my lymph nodes. So I actually took myself to the appointment to meet with my surgeon and the cancer nurse, and I was thinking maybe they're off a chemo, but do I want that? So when I got in there and met with my surgeon, who gently broke the news that actually it was stage 3, I was really shocked, and I was there all by myself. But yeah, they were lovely and supportive. So it wasn't a case of, I mean, everyone's got that choice not to have chemo, but for me, you know, it was an absolute necessity. They explained it was stage 3. So what that meant, my tumour was actually a T4. So the tumours, they give different stages and numbers to. So T1 would be like contained in the bowel, but T4, you get two sorts, T4A and T4B. So mine was T4A. It had actually grown through my bowel wall, which is probably what all that pain was. And it had gone into my blood vessels, nerves and lymph nodes. And that put me at a stage 3. What that meant, you know, it wasn't the worst news possible. What that meant is that this cancer had been in my lymph nodes and possibly flying around my body, going around. So cells can deposit. So microscopic cancer cells can just sort of land elsewhere. And then if they're not treated, then they would grow into what we call like it metastasizes. So your original cancer then ends up elsewhere in the body, and then you know, that it doesn't often become curable, it can be treatable, but I think kind of the terminology changes, although lots of people have beaten like stage 4 cancer, so it really depends. But what we didn't want is or what I certainly didn't want is for it to be growing elsewhere. And the best thing I could do to stop that was to undertake chemotherapy. So that was spoken about, and it was arranged that I'd meet the oncologist to go for everything with her. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock that it was so far advanced, and I was a bit sad because obviously at stage 3 the chances of it progressing are quite high. And I was warned as well, even before we knew it was stage 3, that with my sort of cancer, it's got a high risk, like a high recurrent rate within the first 2 years. So yeah, it was a lot to process, really. So then, yeah, after that meeting, I then went and met with an oncologist. They put all your details into a computer, and then basically say your chances of survival in 5 years with chemo. You know, and it's not great. It's not the worst, but I think without chemo, you know, that would be much reduced. Although some people go on and don't have chemo and remain kind of cured and it doesn't spring up. But for me, yeah, I was just gonna get through the chemo and take whatever they had to offer. So yeah, I had to sign. They give you all the information about the chemo. You're sent links to watch videos. It's harsh going. It's really harsh going. When you read the effects and how it can, you know, age your body 17 years, you know, there's all sorts of questions that you ask yourself, like, is this worth it? What if it gives me a heart attack? Blood clots, you know, sickness, just also, it sounds horrendous. But fortunately for me, actually going through that, you know, it wasn't a horrendous experience, and you are really well looked after if you're finding yourself in similar circumstances. Or, you know, I was looked after. People were so caring. You end up with a hotline to call if you do experience symptoms. So yeah, I think I started that in October, so 2 months post surgery. I was originally meant to have 6 months, but latest evidence shows that actually 3 months of the sort of chemo that I'm on is it's actually slightly more effective to have 3 months, and then it stops some of those, like, the risks of the long-term effects. You can get neuropathy in your hands and feet, and obviously I didn't want that. So yeah, I was happy to go with the evidence. So I actually finished chemo. I started in October and I finished at the very end of December. And really, other than extreme exhaustion, fatigue, I had a couple of days of really bad sickness and cold sensitivity, which was typical. You don't get that with every chemotherapy, but I was on K-Pox, so both the intravenous, I would go and have an IV once a week at the hospital. It's not once a week, so once a cycle at the hospital, and then that would be followed up with 14 days of tablets. So it was like 2 sorts of chemo. When they're put together, it's called K-Pox, and the sort I was on made you really sensitive to cold, and that got worse like through the cycle. So you couldn't, like, I couldn't get anything out of the fridge. We've got wooden floors, I couldn't put my feet on the floors. My last cycle, I had an awful reaction, so I think people on this will probably get it at least once, and that's coming out of the hospital. And then breathing in, and your voice box literally spasms, and it's not nice, it's not pleasant. You don't stop breathing, so if you ever experience this, just remember, you don't stop breathing. It just sounds like a lawnmower going off in your chest. So yeah, I stayed calm and it was all okay. So yeah, I just battled through and stopped chemo just end of December. I didn't lose my hair, although it's gone really, really thin, and I've not been able to dye it, so I've got a few greys there. Yeah, but yeah, there's worse things than that. And now that's it. I've come to the end of my treatment. I've really struggled like after the end of treatment, because in my head it's like, well, what if it's come back? What if it's just growing in my liver? And because of the exhaustion I felt, it's been really hard to get out there and to exercise or have any kind of normality. I'm still not well enough to go back to work yet, and it's not having that routine, probably too much time to think. And there's things like I joined a gym to start swimming, but then just caught every illness going because my chemo makes your immune system, not brilliant. So susceptible to every illness going around, which I seem to have had. And I start worrying, being like, well, if I need more surgery, I'm too heavy, I'm too unfit. Yeah, but it's just about, I've been reassured that actually the surgery in itself can cause extreme fatigue. And I spoke to the oncology and surgical team today, and they're like, actually, you're only 6 months post-surgery. You've got to be easy on yourself and just start building up gradually. So that's what, I'm planning to do, because I really do want to be fitter and healthier. And it's not like you can just push your way through, because it is exhausting. I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. They say they like it when people put on weight through chemo and post-surgery, because it shows kind of they're thriving. I've managed to put on weight through it all, really. There was a short time after surgery where I'd lost a lot, and then chemo just made me balloon. So I am very heavy at the moment. And yeah, just gonna try and do something about that. Because it's not good, but also remembering just to be kind to myself as well. And I can't exactly get out there and run marathons. Yeah, it is kind of what it is. So the future now, moving forward. So I've had a follow-up today with the oncology, the clinical nurse specialist, cancer nurse. And prior to that, he sent me, I sent a pack out, and it's got like a table with a surveillance edu, just to keep an eye, because I can't officially be given like the all clear until 5 years. So they're going to monitor me, because such high risk of it coming back or developing elsewhere. I'll be having surveillance for 5 years, and that's in the way of having my bloods checked as a minimum every 3 months. So they check for tumour markers, so they're called your CEA levels. Mine were never particularly high. I think they were 8 when I had a T4 tumour, so not massively high, and now they're sat around the 1 mark, which is in normal range. But some people's CEA, that goes up into the hundreds. So it wasn't a great indicator for me, although it did show up. So they'll be watching my bloods. In August, so about a year after my surgery, I will then have a CT tap again, so CT scan and a colonoscopy. And on the table it shows like they do that again like on year 3, and then I think at year 5. So it doesn't sound like it's intense, close surveillance. Sorry, my leg's going dead, but it is. Yeah, because most people, well, colonoscopies aren't like a yearly thing, so that's good that they keep an eye on it. It's also nice to speak to the nurse as well. I've kind of got a direct line to them, so any concerns, they've got like the red flag thing, so any weight loss or unexpected weight loss, any blood, anything like that, so you call them and they can arrange for you to be checked. So that was really reassuring. And actually what I meant to feed back is this pack that they sent me, because it was so good. So, it really made me feel a lot better, because I couldn't understand why I was so tired. But, this book explains that post-surgery, 6 months is still early days for such a major operation, and obviously go through the chemo as well quite shortly afterwards. Body's been through a lot, so it would have been really good to have all that information as soon as I finished treatment, because I feel that the last couple of months really since stopping, I've just been left in limbo, and it's been hard. It's been hard, like, emotionally, and I'm someone, I overthink things or think the worst. But again, I think it's normal, because I spent a good few weeks thinking and saying, actually, I'm really worried that something's going on. And everyone's like, no, you'll be fine. And then with the cancer, thinking, actually, I think this might be advanced. I don't know if it's early stages. No, you'll be fine. And then, of course, nothing was fine. So I don't know, I'd be a bit of a fool if I was like, yes, so that's it, it's all going to be brilliant, I'm fine. So yeah, but I am learning to take each day as it comes. I'm really fortunate that I've gone through this whole experience with the support of my family and friends and work colleagues. Everyone has been so supportive, and I don't know how people manage without that support, like if they're single parents or by themselves. There are some great networks out there. So online, there's lots of cancer groups on Facebook. You've got the Macmillan support group, and Macmillan on the whole, like our hospital's got like a cancer centre there, which is the Mustard Tree, which is, I think, provided by Macmillan. So there are sources of support out there. But yeah, practicalities. I mean, at one point I couldn't even stand to boil the kettle, and yeah, I didn't really have a great quality of life, but people do get through it. So I feel that I have just waffled on and on and on, and it probably doesn't make any sense because I know I've jumped from here to there, but I just thought, I've not been on YouTube for such a long time, and the purpose really of making this video is if there's anybody watching that's like, I've had that, I've been a bit constipated, or something's different in my bowels, then just please go and get checked out, because there is nothing worse than hearing like how advanced my cancer was. But also that's so scary, because I didn't really have symptoms that were screaming out cancer. And I think there is kind of a misconception that bowel cancer happens to the elderly, and it does. I was, probably one of the youngest ones having chemo that I could see around me and having surgery. So it does happen to a lot of older people, but actually what they're seeing now more and more is it's happened to younger people, people in their 20s, people in their 30s. There's, like a 13-year-old in one of the cancer groups that I'm in. So it does happen, and it's really, really important to get your symptoms checked, to get that early diagnosis, because you don't want to leave things too late. If you're not happy, if you think my GP hasn't taken me seriously, I did have an incident a few years ago where I went to the GP like concerned about bowel cancer, and they actually laughed and said, you haven't got bowel cancer. Well, probably if I'd had a colonoscopy at that point, it probably would have been a polyp, because bowel cancer usually develops with like little polyps in your colon that can just be snipped off. Bowel cancer can be really slow growing. They say it can take like 10-15 years. So I would have had that cancer for a long time. I do understand that GPs almost have to gatekeep. They can't just refer everyone off. But I think if you are really truly worried, you need to have those investigations, and you've got to advocate. If it means kind of arguing with your GP, getting a second opinion, if you're not happy, keep going back, because the third time you go back, they really kind of have to do something about it. Take a friend with you. Just don't leave things, and don't be fobbed off. I am really, really open and honest about what I've been through. There's probably so much I haven't covered, and happy to answer any questions on here, or you can contact me on my other social medias. I've got Instagram, TikTok, send me a little message on there. But yeah, any questions or anything you want to know, just get in touch. And yeah, this has been like a very quick, well, it's not very quick, but I've literally just gone through the timeline of what's happened to me. But during that timeline, I had to live a life, and there was things that were really, really difficult. I had to have a conversation with my then 11-year-old daughter to say, actually, this is cancer. With my children, my grown-up sons, who are in their early 20s, you know, it's not been easy. And yeah, like for family, although they're there to support me, they're going through their own stuff as well. Like for my own mum, you know, she's got a daughter that suddenly got cancer, and it's really, it's just hard. They say that when someone's diagnosed with cancer, their whole family is, and I think that's really true. It just affects everyone around you, and I've been through some really, really kind of dark times, and it was good for me to reach out to people away from my family as well, so I don't burden them completely and also frighten them. As I say, I'm very medical, and I can put up a good argument about why things, you know, why I'm going to die basically, and you know, that's what I'd think, and I'd put up quite a good argument for that. Of course I can't argue back because none of them are medically trained. I've just had, we're actually sat in our pajamas. Here comes Lila in her stitch.
It's yours, actually.
Oh, actually, I was going to say it looks a bit big. That's mine.
Yeah,
We're matchy. So yeah. So thanks for listening. And
I came at the end.
yeah, she come at the end. I was just saying about the cancer journey really.
I was cuddling Jeff.
So going forward with the YouTube channel, I have been around. I feel like I've been, you know, really ignorant, because when I was going through chemo, I just tended to watch a lot of YouTube videos, but really didn't have the energy or the dexterity actually to really comment on people's videos. Sometimes the phone was too cold to touch, so I'd be, in some interesting
we didn't
positions.
film Christmas, did we?
No, but
we normally film like a vlog on Christmas, but
yeah, so we've been missing. But now I've got this time. I'm not going to be back to work for a little while, so I just thought I'm just going to do some vlogs. They're not going to be that exciting. It's going to be a while before we get to theme parks and things like that, but we will get back. So that's promising. Yeah. So whilst I'm maybe trying to recover a bit from the surgery and chemo, just cancer treatment, I might do some like healthy living vlogs, but I'm not an expert at all. Yes, I might just do some daily ones, so I understand for people who used to watch us where we'd be much more interesting. I understand if that's not your cup of tea, and I won't take offence if you're not there at every video. So I'm just going to end today by saying thank you. I think you meant to put that on your hairy legs. Yeah. Thank you for watching. As I say, if you need to reach out to me in any way, please do so. You've also got some brilliant support out there through Macmillan. Honestly, if ever you're going through something similar, and if you're going through something similar now, I need to reach out, speak to them, because they are the experts and they're so kind and can put you in contact with local organisations. So yeah, so thanks for watching.
Bye.
We'll see you again soon. Bye.